everybody, this is Anne. I thought I would do a video on how to use Mr. Mushroom in Daz Studio. So I guess let's go ahead and begin here. So, okay. First, once you install Mr. Mushroom, you are going to find him under props, way up in my list. He is a fully posable figure. That said, since all of the other parts were props and I felt that he was part of a larger scene, since a mushroom is kind of part of the ground and grass, I figured it made sense to put him with props and kind of keep everything together. So you will find him in props. The first thing you're going to notice is a bunch of presets at the top here that say poly counts. What the poly counts are giving you is the poly count of the grass on the ground, not necessarily everything pictured. So it's going to load like the full ground with the rocks and the cattails and the water and the grass. It's not giving you the count of all of that stuff. It's giving you the grass poly count so that if you have a slower machine, you don't accidentally bog your system down. So if you have less RAM or you kind of struggle in DS here and there, like when you're working in iRay, then you might want to shoot for the low poly one. For most of my promos, I stuck to one of these two. I want to say this one. When you, and forgive me for saying a lot, and I said it again. When you load the scene and you look, after all that talk about grass, first thing you're going to notice, where's the grass? I basically what I did was made it so that the grass is not visible in the viewport. So when you're in texture shaded, when you're in any of the modes except this one, you can't see the grass. If you go into iRay mode, or iRay render preview basically, then you'll be able to see it. But other than that, any of the other ones, you won't actually be able to see the grass. If for some reason you'd like to, if you click on one and then either control or shift click the others and go to parameters, and then again do the whole shift deal and go down, it's right here under visible in viewport. You can turn it back on. Now there's the grass, now it's gone again, and so on and so forth. If, like I said, when you're positioning things you want it on, you can turn it back on. I just felt that for kind of stability's sake, and so it wasn't too to kind of move around, that was a technical term, that it was better to have it turned off. The next thing to go over is the way I made the ground. If I go into the iRay preview here, you're going to see kind of like a blank spot. Granted, I have 3 little tiny pieces of grass there, but the mushroom loads right over them. You can't see them. But you'll see a pretty large kind of open area. I did that for a couple of reasons. One, so that when you're loading the mushroom and loading people and stuff like that, you're not having to worry about grass going through the clothes or through the legs, things of that nature. That always drives me crazy. Like, I like the look of like the polygonal grass in general, but it drives me nuts like when I put a character in it and then there's grass poking through everywhere. And so I kind of made a location where I thought was the best spot for him to kind of load and kind of left that part open. In addition to these four presets up there, We also have down further all the pieces kind of separated out. So there's different chunks and different thicknesses of different groupings of grass, all made specifically for this ground plane. So you can kind of make your own, combine some of these, get thicker grass, get maybe even thinner grass than like this count. And technically, you could completely leave the grass off altogether. If for some reason you want to look at stuff in Iray, like so, and the system's taking too long or the grass is kind of interrupting, then just shoot through real quick and turn off the visibility on all of the grass so that you can get around in this preview better. Uh, let's see here. I think that was everything I wanted to go over there, just what those numbers meant and what I was doing there. The next thing to go over would be on the grass. I put this back on. Shouldn't have took it off, see that? There is a secondary material. This material has kind of a super high gloss setting, like super, super glossy. It's meant for kind of darker renders or for renders where you severely want the light to cast on the grass. You can see like the blues and stuff are starting to pick up in here. If it's too obtrusive, because it is pretty strong, again, you can shift click all of the grass, come over here, and it's basically the glossy color, the glossy layered weight, and the roughness, the glossy roughness that are going to control this. So if say you wanted to have a orange glow on the grass, there's a couple ways you could do it. You could either come in here and change this to set orange, and now the tips of the grass are going to be orange. You could leave it the way this loads and cast the light and let the light catch off of it, which is what I did here. If you look, I don't know if you can see it real well, but it's kind of got a bluish tint to it. If it's too strong, because in some lighting circumstances it gets really blown out because this is like full-on gloss. For brighter lighting that may not be ideal, you can turn that down this way and then it's going to cast less and less. If you want the effect to be kind of more spread out or softer, then you can up the roughness. That's what that'll do, is kind of soften that out more. And if you want it to be severely obtrusive, like really strong, then take the roughness this way and you're going to get like basically colored tips almost, as you can see. Now it looks like it has gray hair. My grass that I originally made was actually this one, which doesn't do that. And when I was kind of working on promos, I actually kind of like the glow, especially in like low lighting circumstances. And so the gloss had to be really high to kind of grab that. So I decided to just add the preset in. But I figured I would explain how best to adjust to get different looks, just in case. And I think that is everything as far as the grass. I'm going to go back to texture shaded and we're going to come back over here. The next thing we're going to go over, I think I'm going to get the grass and ground out of here for right now, just because I have 100 things running for the tutorial. Next we'll go over the little guy. So here's our handsome little Mr. Mushroom. First thing to go over is, as I did say, he is a posable figure. So if you hover over with any of these tools, you're going to see, that there's different areas that you can select. So you can come into parameters and twist him so he can look different ways. He can really twist if he wants to. um, he can, bend backwards, bend forwards, bend side to side at all the different joints. So he can go this way here and kind of this way here and then go back that way here. I don't know why he'd want to do it, but he can. Ah! Um, this was just kind of to show that all of this is movable for you. If you twist them all crazy and you're not crazy about it, you can do restore and let me see here. Restore selected item pose? No. No. Maybe. Maybe I have to pick all of it. Oh, just, yeah, shift click everything, I think should do it. There we go. And that'll reset them right back up again. You can do that for individual parts too. So like if you're on this part and you bend them way crazy, but you like some of the other parts, you can just click on this specific bone and come in here and just zero just that. And leave everything else. The next thing to go over is obviously my promos show a Mr., a Mrs., and a baby. Actually, a couple babies, depending on which images. So here is Mr. The way I did Mrs. was just loaded another instance of Mr. Move them over here a little bit. And usually Mrs. I scale down to like 80-ish%. I think I was shooting for 80, 85 right in there. From here, if you're doing families, if you're doing the little family renders, I usually went into shaping and went into torso and gave her one of the other top reshapes so she wasn't identical to Mr. Another thing that you can do, and I didn't do this in the promos, but I did have fun playing with it. If you wanted her to look kind of like she's got a little dress, or maybe she's pregnant, or I don't know, I did make it so that you can scale individual areas too. So like if I click right here, I can hit scale and I can scale that out. I actually thought that like scaling out some of this, like you could give her a little figure. Or that it looked kind of like she almost had a dress. You could click on this one and then kind of scale a little going the other way. And now she's got kind of almost a bulb shape going. Give me 1 second here to zero her back out. Boop. Okay. So, whoops. That's not what I meant to do. Don't do what I just did. Okay, so as I said, usually I changed her top in some way, shape, or form, made it a little smaller, made it flatter, something, just to kind of make her look a little different from him. So we'll go with, that's her look. She's got a bonnet on. We could add her little hair bow. From here, if you left it like this, which you could, she's going au natural. If you rather it be kind of even more obvious than the hair bow, I did do specific Mrs. Mushroom presets. So if you double click any of these, she gets some makeup and she looks all sassy. Also, if you hover over the thumbnails, you'll get a bigger view because I'm blind and I like to be able to see. Granted, that only works if you have, I think, tips turned on in your settings. I think it is tooltips. If you have those shut off, then I don't think this works right. But anyways, okay, so we're going to say we want to change her top color here. You can mix and match the makeups with the different It's why I separated them. So like if you load this blue, it changes the top and her makeup. If you like that makeup but don't actually want the top blue, you can come in here and do that, and now she's got that makeup but a red top. So okay, so now we have a Mr. and a Mrs. Actually, I feel like that might be a little high. Maybe it's a little too high for me. Do it about there, maybe. Or we could scale it on Y, like this. Maybe I'll do it about like that. Okay, so now we have Mr. and Mrs., but we still don't have little tot mushy. I called them mushies the whole time. That one I tended to scale down somewhere around 50 usually. And then I created two more specifically for this because I wanted the little tiny ones. I thought that would be super cute. So there are two morphs. There's a top smaller and then a top teensy. So top smaller gives you that look. Top teensy gives you this one. It also made it so that you could do like a full like mom, dad, brother, sister, two brothers, two sisters, a whole bunch of little kids, because from this point you can start adding in some of the reshapes and get even more. One thing to note on the morphs, a lot of the morphs, well, all of the morphs, I didn't have locked, which means most of the time, like if you take a morph from 0 to 100 in the positive, that's usually like the way the morph was intended, and in the negative you cannot, like, who knows what the result would be. Like this is this morph in the negative. I found that most of the time the morphs in the negative actually could work, or that when mixed with, say, some other ones, that they had some really cute additional looks and gave additional functionality. So instead of locking the morphs down from 0 to 100%, I decided to leave them go from negative 100 to 100. That does mean, however, that from 0 to 100 is the morph as I intended it. From 0 to negative 100, use at your own risk. Obviously, if it looks messed up, don't use that. I had some facial expressions, like, let's see if I can find one, that if you go negative, the face kind of crunches up weird. Maybe this one looks like a good candidate. No, that one actually looks cute in the negative. Maybe this one was one. Okay, there's one that kind of, his face is kind of crunchy and sort of elongated weird. I left those and didn't lock those down either, just because while this might not work like as its own morph, sometimes when mixed lightly with some other stuff, like it added extra exaggeration in certain areas. So when combined with, say, like that, gives you something like this weird in between. And I just felt again that it could give you added functionality and added use and added expressions that maybe I didn't think of or hadn't intended. So it just left it all open. Just know that from, like I said, 0 to 100 is what I meant. From 0 to negative 100 was happy accidents. um, let's see here. So we've done moms and babies. You can also elongate certain parts because I didn't lock any of the individual scales either. So you could elongate this part. Now he's very tall, mushy. You can scale just on certain axes. Like this is making him really wide this way. I don't know why I'd want to do that, but I would suggest if you use Z to probably use X to the same amount or close. But there could be, I don't know, some kind of reason where you only want the one depth but not the other. It's so you'll have lots of fun experimenting with all that. You will note in one of my promos that there's it's the one with the lady holding the poor little mushroom. You'll note that there was little mushrooms on the ground and you won't see them like, hey, there's no little mushrooms in here. What I actually did was just loaded Mr. Mushroom because he's actually very low poly. And you can, I think, get him even lower, possibly. Can't remember what I decided there. Maybe not. Maybe he is just low. Oh, I'm not on the main. Okay, let's try this again. Oops. I'm losing my marbles here. Did I add sub D to this? Okay, there's a base resolution and a high resolution. So if you want more resolution, right here, I have him load in at base because I felt that he was pretty decent low poly. That said, if you get in real close, there are like some more jaggedy areas like in here and stuff. This does kind of level out some. Or smooth out a little bit more. Anyways, what I was saying is what I basically did was just that. I just turned Mr. Mushroom around and used the back of the mushroom and then all the morphs to do the little mushrooms. So he can be used that way too. If the back is facing the camera, you don't know there's a face on the other side. So kind of an extra use there. Okay, whoops. I didn't mean to make him big. There you go, stay there. Stay with your mom and dad. Okay, so, we went over all of that stuff. Let's see here, I'm trying to remember what else I wanted to kind of show. And I'm sorry that I'm babbling. I get nervous when I record. It's all very awful. Okay, we went over the morphs. Oh, if you decide to use Mr. Mushroom with dForce, which may happen, especially if you're doing fairies and you want somebody to like sit up on top of the top here, you can just click on him, come into here, go to Edit, Geometry, and you can just add dForce modifier static surface to him. That's what I did for all of my promos that used dForce, and they were all fine. You didn't even have to adjust anything for it or anything else. So just if you didn't know how to do that, now you do. And I just thought it was worth bringing up. So I think that is everything on the mushrooms for the most part. I think that's most everything. Oh, there is something else worth mentioning. His little eyeballs. You will note that on some of the morphs, I'm going to change the surface. Now he does have a proper like iris, pupil, sclera area, so you can actually like add you could do an eye texture for it. I thought about it, but I actually like the little black eyes. Like I thought they looked the cutest. I thought the real ones didn't quite look right. But okay, so there's his eyeballs, so we can actually see them better. On some of the morphs, let's see, or like when you go negative, when you start mixing morphs, you could have where like the mixture of morphs pops the eyes weird somehow. If that happens, I didn't actually lock the eyeballs down either. So you can actually click the eyes and you can scale them up and down. You can translate them in and out. I actually at one point was going to do a render where his eyes were like popped out of his head. like like the old cartoon like alarmed look, if that makes sense. Like ah. But so you can move all of that too if by some chance you accidentally click on the eyes and they come out of sync or whatever. Same thing as what I showed earlier. Just come back in and just zero selected item pose and it'll put it back where it needs to be. Okay, what's next? First, let's get rid of the white eyeballs because he looks like zombie mushroom now. That is not the intended look. Here we go. A little better. Rather than going backwards, I'm just gonna do this. Okay, so we're back on Mr. Mushroom again. His little default phase. The next thing I wanted to go over was the Fireflies. I added this because I kept doing renders where it was kind of dim. I don't know why. I kind of liked the nighttime, like relaxed, tranquil look for the promos. But so I decided to do these little fireflies and decided to include them. They are meant for like close-ups of him. So the render settings and all that work well. And there's render settings for this. The render settings and all that work well if he is at this distance. Now, first thing you will notice is this doesn't exactly look like my thumbnails do. Like, just not quite the same, or like my promos. Part of that has to do with lighting. If the scene is really brightly lit, you don't really get the halo effect so much. In this case, we'd have to add a camera. So there's my camera. Go to that camera, turn the headlamp off, and the environment would actually have to be darker than what it is right now too. So for right now, we're just going to go to like dark gray, and now you're going to be able to see it as I intend it to look. It is also meant to be used from fairly close distances. It'll work pretty good until you get to a certain point. When you get way, way, way back here, eventually the glows kind of go away because it's just so small that you don't see it anymore. And my setting doesn't quite work as well the further away you get. But the fireflies can pretty much be used for any scene. Just know that, like, if you're way back there, you might not get the same effect, and if the scene is very, very bright, then they're not going to show like they do here either. Um, that especially goes for some of the colors. So like there's the red, orange, yellow, green, and then straight yellow. But if my background's lighter, that all washes, like the color gets lost in it. If the environment's real bright, let's see here, environment, it starts to wash out the color some. It holds up pretty well. Just know that if all of a sudden it looks like the halo effect is kind of going, um, you may have to go into filtering and play with the bloom filter radius or the bloom filter threshold, or even the bloom filter brightness scale. Just be careful with the brightness scale. I did do two different settings, one where the bloom is fairly strong, which is this one. Let me zoom back in here. And then one where it's more subdued. It's still there, it's just very faint. But it's a little better for close-ups because like on some renders, if the background's real dark, this actually almost is too big. So I put in two just to set. And the only thing that these two presets will set is actually the bloom in here. It will not interfere with like whatever environment maps you have on or any other stuff that you've changed. It literally only changes the bloom. So that is all the excitement on the Fireflies. Let's see here. Other than that, I guess we could do a real quick scene, because Lord knows that was probably all very boring. Okay, so let's back off here a little bit. I work a little strange. I tend to work in Array Preview. I like to be able to see what I'm doing to a certain degree. It's okay, we've got our grass in there. We'll add in Mr. Mushroom. I am strangely partial to Mrs. Mushroom. I like her makeups. And I like some of the morphs, I think, look funnier on her. And so we're gonna, I think I'll go with the blue. I think I'll make her little bow here blue. I think I'll give her my disgruntled lunch lady look. Actually, you know, that's a weird thing, because I think all the lunch ladies I ever knew were always really happy, but I always see things online, like cranky lunch women, or in movies. Anyway, so okay, we get to here. So it's got her little expression. Maybe we'll change the top here some, or maybe her torso a little bit. This will kind of thin out the bottom or fatten it up, depending on which way you want to go here. I'll say I'm going to thin this out a little bit. Maybe I'll make her a little taller. Now when you do stretch her taller, the side to sides and stuff still work. Just it all works a little different depending what shape you put her in. So we're just going to make her like super bendy. Now she's sticking her hip out. Bend this back this way. go back to shaping. Click on her, that would be helpful. Go back to the morphs. I think we'll reshape the top down some. I don't know why, that just seems like it suits her. Might dial this in a little to bring the bottom out some. There's some other like underside, like this area only morphs down towards the bottom here. That's what these are doing. So if you want that to be really prominent, like some mushrooms can be. So we'll bring that down. I think I'm going to use the top smaller and make this a little tinier. And I think I'll bend it forward just a little. You know, I bent it back and now I'm bending it forward again. Maybe right about there. Now she looks disgruntled. I can picture her with her hand on her hip if she had a hand. Okay, generally from here, I kind of will take a look at like how I want the render to sit. Let's see here. Yeah, I kind of liked it where it's at because she looks a little more perturbed from head on, I think. So we're going to put her there. We're going to move her off a little to the side just because, you know, the whole rules of composition thing. Don't dead center her. I do it anyway sometimes, but I'll behave for this. Okay, let's see here. I think I will go for the glossy grass. Come here, add that. From here, I'm going to click on her. That is another thing about the fireflies. It's best to click on Mr. Mushroom or Mrs. Mushroom and then load the fireflies, or click on nothing and load them. If you accidentally click on like cattails or something like that, then they'll load probably someplace weird. Okay, so we got our fireflies in here. I think I might decide to scooch them a little. Oh, I'm scooching her because I'm silly. Them, not her. I didn't like that one right in her face. Oh, there's one stuck in her side. Get out of her side. That's rude. Oh, maybe it was behind her. Okay, so we'll say we're gonna leave her like so. Let me tilt it back this way some. From here, going to copy this view so I have it in a real camera. Camera, headlamp, off. Now I actually, for the backgrounds of my images, just loaded in backgrounds, actually photos that I had taken from a lake. I think I'll go with this one because I like that one. I'm partial to it. And I think this background specifically looks really nice with this grass, like with the hints of highlight in it. Okay, so we are to here. From here, the only things I would maybe do is I might add like a spotlight because there's kind of orange light coming from over on this side that's kind of a little stronger. And if you wanted to add kind of those kind of orangey, reddy, yellowy colors in, you could add a spotlight in that color to kind of shine it off. I know I did that for a fair few of the renders, like pick some colors from the backdrop. The next thing I would probably do is go into lit wireframe and go to top view, click the ground, center that, click on the camera and add depth of field. Turn that on, move that back so that that ball right here is where you want the main focal point to be, which obviously I want to be the mushroom, so I'll move that there and then pull these apart some so that the grass forward is a little blurry and the glass backward is a little blurry, but right in here is nice and clear, and I actually might pull it forward a little more. We'll see how that looks. Hopefully you can see that. It might be easier if I actually went into this mode. Now you can see it a little better. Sorry about that. So, like where the white ball is right here, you want to kind of be wherever your focal point's going to be, or thereabouts. And then everything behind the plane is going to start getting blurrier and blurrier the farther away, and everything in front of this plane, same thing. So if you want kind of, a lot of it to be clear, you go like that. If you want less and less, like that. I want a little more in the front and a little less in the, I want more blur in the back and less blur in the front. So I'm going to move this whole thing forward. And we're going to see how that looks. Could probably use to pull it together maybe a little more, which is going to make the front a little more blurry. Now, in addition to all of this other stuff, all of these things are individual pieces. So, like if you don't like the cattails, you can turn them off or delete them out of there. Now there's no cattails. Technically, you could get rid of the water. You could move her over so you can't see the water. I also highly recommend, for a lot of sets actually, that sometimes putting the character together at 0 and putting all the stuff in your scene at 0 is a lot easier than moving the characters around and then having to work on everything at angles. So you're better to make your main scene kind of dead in the middle and then move your actual environment around to get different looks. So like if we come in here and do Y rotate, now this is what you're going to get. If we rotate it some more, you're going to get this. But that can be substantially better than kind of moving the guy around the scene. Move the scene around the guy. I do it with Vicky and stuff all the time. That's kind of a fun angle. Kind of like that with the tall grass, but maybe a little over from where it was. And I mean, that would be about it. I think that was everything I wanted to go over with you. I realized that went a little long. I'm very gabby. I need to work on that. I someday will learn to cut things shorter, I promise. That said, I never am sure who knows how to do what things, and so I try not to leave things out, for better or worse. Um, okay, I think we're going to go ahead and end this here. As I said previously, if you have any other questions at all, if you need anything, if you want to show me your renders, I'd love to see them. I have a thread in the forums. Um, Also of note, please feel free to come visit us on our website, which is art-collaborations.com. We have some articles there. All the video tutorials that I do end up going up on there. Um, Artwork, links to different products. I do my own product pages on there, so the way I format kind of what's in the pack is a little different from the way it's presented on DAS. I kind of group things differently, and sometimes it can be easier when seeing information in different ways to figure out what's there and what you're getting. So please consider coming and checking out the website. And I want to thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.